Now to the business of Elon Musk. Doug Flynn joins us, co-founder at Flynn Zito Capital Management. So this is kind of the way he goes. Now he's back to not only Tesla, but SpaceX and all the other companies that he runs. And he's going to stay at Tesla, he says, for at least 5 years as CEO. So now we've done stories, oh, the brand has been damaged, and maybe it has. How much? I don't know. What would you say now about Tesla, the company, Tesla, the investment, knowing that Elon will be in place?
Well, a couple things. One, I think that it's a smart move on his part. I also think in scaling back from the political donations that you were just referring to, I don't. Scaling back could still mean that he's spending a lot of money, but I think he's definitely going to do it more in the background. And that gets back to that old Teddy Roosevelt quote of speak softly and carry a big stick. I think he can have a lot of influence, but not be as so forefront with everything, because it absolutely has damaged his brand and damaged his company. So if you take a step back, even if you're messing around behind the scenes, as a lot of people do with money, but you get to focus back on your businesses, I think all of those are going to be good. And hopefully, to him, he can reverse a lot of the damage that has been done to his own personal image and brand, I think.
Well, one way to do that might be through advances in self-driving, in the full self-driving, as they call it. I know he's been talking about this today. It's interesting on a couple of fronts. You know, on the consumer level, somebody was telling me the other day that they drive into work without looking at the road, which is dangerous. I have a Tesla. I won't say who, because, but just watch out in Queens at about 8:30, 9 o'clock in the morning, just saying. But so that's part of it. The other thing is that you got the taxi part of it. Waymo's big. I was out in Phoenix. I saw all these cars driving around, no drivers. People, you know, it's a big deal there. And now Musk says he's going to get involved in that in Austin, Texas, and build out from there. So that's coming up fast. It took a while, but now it's coming on quickly, self-driving. And what's the impact on business there, especially on the taxi side?
You can see that. I was just in San Francisco. You could see those all over the place, and there's a lot of miles that get driven that way. And the real kick of this, I think, is if you have a Tesla and then it has some downtime and they're able to call upon those and use those, and you make money while your car is just sitting there. I mean, that's the next level to adding revenue to not only the company, but also to people, and then recreating that demand for the brand. So there are a lot of applications, but he has made a lot of statements on what full self-driving and other things can do, which has not materialized. So we'll see how much, but we do know that these things are available and out there, and it's going to start getting its way in there. And he's a visionary, and so there's a lot of those things that we can certainly point to on many fronts and many businesses. So I think it's accretive to the company in the long run. If he focuses back in at the company, takes a step back from all this other stuff, that's a plus for the company and his other companies as well, too.
Yeah, he says he's going to have a ton of them by next year, but again, the robo-taxi's coming maybe even sooner, I think, in Austin, Texas, and out from there. Okay, let's shift gears a little bit and talk about one other item before we get to the closing bell and the president live from the Oval Office. So we were talking the other day a lot about companies that say they're going to raise prices, and Walmart was the big headline, right? They said, and the president got on them, and there was a back and forth. He told them to eat the tariffs, which is a whole other story, considering what he said in the past about tariffs. But Home Depot, you know, there's still other companies. I think Subaru came out and said they probably are going to raise prices. But I thought Home Depot, it was interesting. This is another huge retail company that says, no, not yet. We're not going to raise prices because of the tariffs. We're going to hold steady. We asked you about, I think, about Walmart. What about Home Depot, the other side of it?
So Home Depot says that about half of their supplies come from within the U.S., and they're committed to that. And so they're going to hold firm. And what they've done is they've decided to scale down on non-U.S. based and actually starting next year, not have any one country be more than 10% of any of their supplies. So what they're doing is they're decreasing their China buys, and they're spreading around their supplies. And so if they can do that and manage it, I mean, this is what you want from a CEO. In this case, a CFO said this, but from the companies that are running your investments, the companies that you invest in, you want them to make adjustments and make changes and do things that will not only help the stock price, help the company, help the employees, but also help the country. And that's, I think, what they're doing. Here's a good example of it. There are others that, interestingly about Subaru raising prices, what got lost a couple weeks ago was Ford actually raised prices on 3 of their models that are made in Mexico. Didn't really make a lot of press, but it's starting to creep in, and you're going to see a little bit more of that creeping in. Some companies are going to manage it. Some companies are going to eat it or work with their suppliers. Even Walmart said they're going to eat some, they're going to pass some down to some suppliers. In other words, squeeze their suppliers. They're still going to raise overall. So they're doing a combination approach. So
Right.
we'll see how each firm does it. But when they raise it, I always get back to, if you're using tariffs as an excuse to raise prices, are you going to lower them when the tariffs go away? And I bet you $1 they don't.
Yeah, that's like when we talk about when gas prices go up and down and how quickly they move one direction versus the other. Doug, as always, thank you.